Hi everyone, and welcome to the Strong Families podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Jo, and on this podcast we have real talk with real parents about the highs, the lows, and the in-betweens of family life, in the hopes that we can all learn a little something.
That's right. So grab a coffee, strap in, and we hope by the end of this podcast all of our families have grown a little stronger.
I know I need it.
Hi Jo.
Hi Amy.
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
Yeah, just
Good.
we just interviewed Kaz.
Yeah, we did.
Who's our guest on the podcast today.
Yep.
And it was definitely, it touches your heart, her story, doesn't it? It really, her strength inspires me so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait for people to hear, on the other side of loss. And I'll let her tell her story.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll let her do it.
It is, really, really powerful. And so I think anyone who's been through loss in any form or grief in any form is going to get something from it.
Oh, absolutely get something out of it. Before we get into that, Jo,
Yes.
I was driving here and I was thinking about how I feel like you have all the best stories. Maybe that's because you have a million kids, so there's a million children to have stories about.
A million. It does feel like a million.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does.
I'll take that.
So I was thinking about, especially now that I'm pregnant and I'm 23 weeks now. It was making me think, for one of your kids, you found out you were pregnant at a very interesting time along the timeline of being pregnant. So do you want to tell our listeners your unique story?
Well, I mean, I don't want the listeners to hate me because so many people just feel horrible in their first trimester. They feel so sick. And so when I tell this story, they kind of hate me a little bit because I didn't realize I was pregnant with Oscar until I did the pregnancy test.
Yep.
Wasn't quite sure how many weeks I would be. So obviously went to the doctor and did a blood test and they said, all right, by the looks of your HCG, you're probably 7-8 weeks along. And I thought, okay.
Reasonable.
Yep, that
seems normal.
That seems okay. I'll go for the dating scan next week. So I booked it in. And before the dating scan, I thought, I swear I'm feeling like movement, but I can't be. It must just be in my head now because, now I know that I'm pregnant. I'm just feeling, little, gas bubbles or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I went for the scan and they put the ultrasound probe on me and it literally like a full baby's skeleton appeared. It was not the blob anymore. And the lady said, you're like 16, 17 weeks pregnant. Turns out HCG goes up until 12 weeks and then back down again. So it was on the other side of that hill without realizing it. So yes,
Perfect.
That was kind of embarrassing, I guess, to tell people like, oh, by the way, I'm halfway through my pregnancy that I just found out about.
Second trimester.
And yes, anyway, he made me pay for it by the end of the pregnancy. It was very uncomfortable at the end, but the start, amazing start to a pregnancy. So
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
As someone at 23 weeks this morning was about to hurl in the car, I'm so happy for you.
I appreciate it. Anyway, so yes, enough about me.
Okay, cool. Done.
But yes, that is one of my interesting pregnancy stories.
We love
but
that.
Let's get into the episode. Let's hear from Kaz because I think she has something really important to share.
She really does. So strap in, grab some tissues, and just in case you've missed it, we just want to give a heads up. We are talking about loss in this episode.
Yeah.
So just be ready for that.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Enjoy.
Okay, well, hello Kaz. Welcome to the Strong Families podcast.
Hi.
We are so excited to have you on. I'm just really excited to hear your story. I know a little bit of it, but I think it's going to really bring a lot to us and to our listeners. So thank you for coming on. But we always like to start our podcast by just asking people what their family snapshot is. So if you could give us a picture of your family, what you're like, who's in it, your interests, just a little bit of detail about your life.
Paint away.
Can I be a little bit raw from the get-go?
Of course you can.
We love that, yes.
That's actually a little bit of a hard question for us and for me because if you ask me what my family snapshot is, it's myself, my beautiful husband Steve, and our 3 kids, Hannah, Josiah and John. But if you were to physically take that snapshot, you would only see Steve and I and our 2 boys. So those kind of questions, and I know this season it's on the other side of, and I've just jumped in with both feet and landed us on, hi, this is the other side of loss. And those questions are actually a bit tricky to navigate.
Yeah.
But having said that, I have husband, 2 beautiful boys, a 4-year-old and an 8-month-old, and they are on the go.
Yeah, 2 boys. I've got 1 boy, so I get it, but she's got the 2.
Yeah, 2 boys, and they're definitely, boys are their own thing.
They're full of energy, but they're so sweet. I don't know if your boys are the same. I feel like I've got a really sweet boy, and I love it. I love being a boy mum. Yeah.
I've got 2 very strong-willed boys.
Yeah. Okay,
very
great.
strong-willed
boys.
Which you always tell yourself, this will be good, but it is testing at times, I'm sure. And they're just busy, aren't they? Boys are busy at those ages, on the go, and it can be hard to keep up sometimes.
A little bit.
Yeah. And what about you and Steve? What are you guys like? How long have you been together?
So we've been married 11 years. We've known each other. I met Steve when I was 11.
Whoa.
So we've known each other a very long time.
Yeah.
And we like hanging out. We like coffee. We like good food.
Yeah.
That's us.
Foodies.
Yep.
Awesome.
Not quite foodies, more coffee snobs.
Coffee snobs. Okay, great.
Nice. And you were saying Steve has a whole heap of hobbies.
He does.
But you only have 1 hobby, but they're probably equally financially
Taxing. Yeah.
Yes. My hobby is study, and study is not cheap.
Yep.
No, books are expensive.
Good books.
Yeah.
So what do you do for work, Kaz?
I'm a curriculum writer, so I write curriculum.
Hence the study. You got to know what you're writing, I suppose.
I do. So I currently look after English and the humanities for a distance education provider for years 7 to 9, and that keeps me out of mischief.
Yeah.
Yes. We keep you very busy. Plus the
busy.
boys and everything that is involved with that.
Yeah. So you work at home.
I do.
Right. So does that mean you're mumming at the same time as working?
At the moment, yes.
Okay.
So Josiah goes to daycare 4 days a week, and
Yeah.
my wonderful sister has him the other day.
Oh, bless.
But John is at home with me at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's its own sort of special.
Yeah, it really is. I experience that myself. It's a challenging balance,
Yes.
for sure. Do you find that as he's getting older, it's getting more challenging?
Yes.
Okay. Are you feeling in your mind, you're like, okay, we're going to need to make some changes at some point?
We will.
Yeah.
We will. But it's a case of, with John, it's a little bit, we've got some things to navigate to make sure that it's safe and good. And
Of course.
Yeah. So,
well, let's just jump in because, I mean, we asked you on this podcast because we knew that you'd walked through loss, and that was probably, one of the most heartbreaking, devastating losses that a parent can experience, the loss of your daughter, Hannah. So would you mind just telling us her story?
yeah. So Hannah was born in 2014, and as our first, we had absolutely no idea. And they say your first is a steep learning curve. Well, Hannah came with extra steep. So when she was born, she was perfect. Beautiful baby, very healthy. No indication that there was anything going on. It wasn't until we had a pediatrician visit, and this pediatrician had seen the condition before, and so she kind of 5-alarm fire and referred us to the Royal Children's for a neurology consult and blood
How old
tests.
was Hannah at that point?
Hannah was 3 months old when she was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
So she was diagnosed on the 1st of April.
Okay.
And it's kind of a bit of a brutal conversation. You go into the hospital going, it's big and scary, and because it's big and scary, I took my mum.
Of course, yes. Fair enough.
And so we went, and the doctor sat there, examined Hannah, and kind of looked at us and went, I am 90% certain that Hannah has a genetic condition called spinal muscular atrophy type 1.
Whoa. That would have felt like a hit to the chest.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I had no idea what that was.
Totally.
What is that? What is
Yeah.
spinal muscular atrophy? I've heard of muscular dystrophy. Is that
Yep.
similar? Like, are we talking wheelchairs? Are we talking...
Yeah.
And then she said, and this is a terminal diagnosis.
Yep.
Wow.
Second blow.
Yep.
Yep.
So she sent us down to pathology to get some blood tests done so that they could confirm the diagnosis. And we called my dad and Steve, and they came, and we sat and we had a very big conversation with a lot of medical people in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
We met the team, and that was a lot. Lots of medical words. I like words. I like knowing words, and I heard lots of words that I'd never heard before.
Yeah, of course.
So very challenging, and you know, you're in a bit of shock when that happens, and so we went home because life still goes on. Well, we didn't actually go home. We went back to my parents' place,
Yeah.
and we stood there as like just this little circle in their lounge room, and we made a decision that we were going to celebrate the milestones and enjoy the moments.
Wow.
And that was our conscious choice, and something we deliberately decided.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We celebrated every month birthday,
Yeah.
every new skill that we saw. What you need to understand is spinal muscular atrophy is a missing gene.
Okay.
So Hannah was born with a complete deletion of the SMN1 gene,
Right.
and that's the gene that provides protein for your motor neurons to grow.
Okay.
So if you don't have motor neurons, your muscles can't grow.
Okay.
They waste away, they die. And so we had front row seats to that process happening in Hannah's body.
Yeah.
So by 6 months, Hannah had lost the ability to feed orally, and we had a nasogastric tube.
Yeah.
She also couldn't manage saliva secretions, so we had a suction kit.
Yeah.
And Hannah stopped breathing on me 3 times.
Whoa.
We did
Scary.
CPR successfully 3 times. We did hospital admissions for aspirations where she'd breathe fluid into her lungs. But in the middle of all of this, we went on a family holiday.
Beautiful.
Our church blessed us with some extra spending money because we were broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't working. I was
Yeah.
full-time at home. And I am so fortunate. Steve worked incredibly hard to make sure that we had what we needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to have a holiday, and then at about 7.5 months, we had the palliative care team come out to our house and sit down and have a bit of a conversation about end of life.
Okay.
And they were very loving about it. You know, we're not saying that this is going to happen soon, but we need to start talking about these
to
things.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Just the kind of conversation that you just would never imagine needing to have.
No.
When you hold your baby that first time, there would have been just absolutely no way you would ever
No idea.
think that would happen.
No idea
Totally.
whatsoever.
And when you got the diagnosis and they said it was terminal, did they give you a timeline? Did you have
Less than a year. They
Less
said
than a year.
said that children with this type of SMA generally don't survive
Right.
to their first birthday.
Okay. Okay.
So we
All
knew.
right.
We
You
knew.
knew. Yeah.
You knew, but it's still
It
so
doesn't make
unknown.
it easier.
Unknown what that
No.
the next few months are going to hold.
And it was unknown, and it was so many things.
Yeah.
And so we had this conversation, and our beautiful, wonderful extended families got together, and they made Christmas happen the first weekend in October for us. So we had Christmas with Hannah,
Yeah.
and then 3 days later, I had my appendix out because just what you need.
Timing.
Isn't that so weird? You can get appendix problems at any age. Like my
Yeah.
sister-in-law just had her appendix
Yeah.
out,
Yep.
you know, in her mid-30s, and you think, surely if this is going to happen,
Yep.
it would have happened
Sooner?
Earlier or
By
sooner.
now.
Just the timing, that
Yeah.
just seems
That's
ridiculous.
So I had my appendix out.
Yeah.
And so I spent sort of the last 2 weeks of Hannah's life not being able to lift her independently.
Oh wow. Okay.
But the morning that Hannah died, we had family in and around. We had our PAL care team come out for a visit, and I'd actually sat down with Steve and said, "You're going to have to help me. I need to not do CPR the next time she stops breathing.
Right.
I
Okay.
need to not.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not fair to bring her back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not."
Yeah.
So
It's that tough quality of life
it is.
decision
It
that no
is.
one should have to make, but it's yeah.
But we heard the change in her breathing.
Yeah.
And Hannah died in our arms at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And it was all kinds of wonderful and terrible and horrific and beautiful, big
Yeah.
mess all at once.
Big mess. I
Big
think
mess.
that's probably the only way you can describe something like that.
Yeah.
And there are things that I'm so grateful for. Our PAL care team was there, which meant the death administration all happened because there was a doctor present.
Oh,
so
okay.
that was all. That was one of the things I was dreading,
Yeah.
having to ring the hospital and jump through all the administrative hoops to
Yeah.
go, she's died at home.
Yeah. Go through that
Yeah,
process.
here's all the paperwork.
Yeah.
And it's the things that you never think about. Like those sorts
No.
of things are just horrible. But they have to be done.
Yeah, they do.
So that's our journey with Hannah. She was 8 months and 22 days old.
Yeah.
What was she like?
Cheeky.
Okay.
She was cheeky.
cheeky
She was
girl.
too smart for her own good.
Oh, like a mama.
Yeah, beautiful
Yeah.
brown
Passed
eyes.
on the brain.
Yeah. So she beautiful brown eyes, and she had a way of smiling with her eyes that I see it in John every once in a while. He just does this,
Oh, that's beautiful.
beautiful
Yeah.
little cheeky grin, and it's
Yeah.
it's here, but it's also here, and
Yeah.
she was just
Cheeky.
special, cheeky.
Yeah.
And it's those things like she was 8 months, so her personality wasn't fully formed, but she was just.
I feel like as a
this-
mum, you can pick up on it though
Yeah.
earlier than
Still
Oh, and she was
personality
she was
isn't there.
stubborn and strong-willed, and
Yeah.
she lost her biscuit one time because I had put her in a singlet and a long sleeve top, and she just lost it. I'm
Yeah.
panicking by this stage because crying increases secretions, and
Oh.
so managing that, and so
Oh.
I'm like, I strip her off, and she's like, huh. And I'm like,
I'm
"Oh."
okay now.
Okay.
I'm the boss.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
She didn't want to wear a long sleeve top.
Okay. That was it.
This is
Back off.
fine.
Got it. Got it. Got it, kid.
Pretty
We will
much.
not fight that
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There are plenty of other battles that you're
Yeah,
fighting.
This is
I'm
not the
sure.
one. This is not the hill we're going to fight on today.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her story. Thank you for sharing that.
right.
What was the time like after? Again, like obviously you had that. You knew early that this was inevitably something you were going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So what was that time after like for you and for Steve?
Hard for different reasons. My entire world, our entire world, was Hannah.
Yeah.
We lived in a COVID lockdown bubble before it was popular.
Yeah. Before it was cool.
Yeah, before it was cool. We did
It's a real
lockdown.
trend setter.
Absolutely. So we
When COVID came, you're like, we've got
Done
this.
this.
We
Been
know
there.
how to do this.
Been there, done that. So no, but we had reduced our lives had reduced to this
Yeah.
really small bubble, and being out and about in the world was terrifying.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you're the great unwashed, and you're germy, and
Yep.
and when you know that a simple cold will kill your child,
Oh yeah. No. You lock in and you sanitize.
everything.
Yeah.
So
Did you find it hard to then re-enter the world?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
no
It's
one
really
knew
hard.
what you'd been through. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, some people did, but
yeah.
the public, when you walk out, they don't know what you've been
No,
through.
and it's really weird when you're in the middle of a shopping centre and you're going to go pay for your groceries, and for no apparent reason you've just got tears bucketing down your face
Yeah.
because
You're
because
grieving.
yep,
Because,
and
yeah.
that's life, and I hate crying. I
Yeah.
actually hate crying, so
Yeah.
I found that really, really, really hard. And I was very fortunate in that we'd been blessed with a Precious Wings memory box, and in that they had these little cards that lived in my wallet. Mine died from disintegration, which said, it was literally a card I could give to somebody saying, I've experienced the loss of my child, and I can't talk right now.
Oh, wow.
That's such a good tool.
Takes the pressure off you to explain the scenario to someone else.
Yeah.
You just know that someone created that who'd been in your
Who'd been there.
position.
And they
who
have.
knew, what can we do to help
And on the
a
back of
grieving
it,
parent? We can just create this little
it's just a little business card
that is going to help them in those moments.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and on
so
the back of it
kind.
said, you know, you can ask me if I'm okay. You could possibly get me a glass of water.
Yeah.
So it had some practical things to do.
Yeah, that's such a helpful
But
tool
when
to
you
have.
just
Yeah.
And so that would happen with more regularity than I like to admit.
Yep. Valid. Very valid.
And you know, re-entering the workforce. That was, I was very spoiled. I was fortunate enough to get a position at a company where my mum actually worked. So I was very loved. And
Before you even entered, they kind of knew your story.
Yeah, and so they were very gentle and very loving. And I am the kind of person who give me deadlines and leave me to work, and I'm a very happy camper. So that was the workspace that I was in.
Great.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Did you find work was kind of healing for you because you could just put your head down, get it done, almost kind of disassociate from the grief a little bit?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have also been working with a counsellor since Hannah was 6 months old. So long-term investment there.
Oh, absolutely.
Worth it?
Worth it. I needed somebody external to my situation to help me navigate the mess of my head.
So
Yes.
important.
Because my head is not my best friend sometimes.
And did you find you also had to kind of balance the grief that, you know, your mum would have been feeling, Steve would have been feeling, so you're trying to
Be
live
everything to
around
everyone.
other people who are also in
Grieving.
pain, but it's different to your pain because your mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were very, very blessed in that our families, they really practiced the circle principle where we were the center. We were the people who were experiencing it, and everybody was sort of layers outside that. And so family would come around and they'd love us, but they would pour their grief out to somebody outside the circle, so that we weren't dealing with where they were. They let us deal with where we were, and they held us through this process.
That's
That's very
really
kind.
an amazing response, because I know that's not
It's
everyone's
not always
story.
what happens.
No,
I
not
was
at
that
all.
we were very, very blessed and
Yeah.
very, very loved in this this process. And look, people say things, and you learn to have a little bit of a thicker skin around some things.
You just imagine hitting them instead of actually hitting them or something like that when people say
I kind of go. I call it throwing. I like to throw conversational hand grenades.
okay, yeah,
Because I go, if you're going to go there, I'm going to go there too.
right.
You want to ask an impertinent question, I'm going to throw.
Something back to you that also makes you feel uncomfortable.
Let's
Yeah.
learn.
Let's keep it even, guys. Let's play fair.
Yeah, because I
and-
can just imagine people are insensitive at times, aren't
They
they?
just
or
don't
caught up
know.
in their own world, you
Yes.
know, and not necessarily
Yes.
sensitive to your world
Yes.
and your emotions. Yeah,
And I kind of, what people, use as an analogy of, understanding loss, it's hilarious sometimes. And you go, bless your cotton socks. If that's the worst loss you've ever experienced, praise God for your innocence. And, I really hope that continues for you.
right.
Yeah,
So you just kind of show grace to them and go, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you
that
can't-
must be really hard not getting that car park or whatever it is you're
Yeah.
complaining about right now.
Yeah.
But
What else do you do?
Yeah.
It's not my job to educate everybody else. It's my
Yes.
job to be responsible for my responses.
Yeah,
And as
of
murder is not an
course.
option.
No, it's really not. is it?
probably
That'll be a
not.
whole other hurdle that we could talk about being on the other side. of.
yeah, well, let's not go there.
Let's not do that one. No. So it's a case of just I had to learn, and like I said, I've worked with a counsellor long term to do this, to not take on other people's, I suppose, their grief. My grief is my grief, and I'm responsible for that. And to some extent, Steve and we have that shared grief as parents, and so quite naturally, he is the person that I turn to.
Yeah.
He is the one who understands it the most.
Yes.
And I don't need words with
Yeah.
Steve. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was there through
He
it.
gets it.
You don't have to
That's it.
explain
Yeah.
what happened.
There's no backgrounding, it just is.
It
Yeah,
just
that's
is,
that's
yeah.
wonderful.
So do you find that the grieving process, because from what I've heard, grief can affect a marriage one of two ways. It can be positive and bring you closer, or it can really pull you apart. And you guys you're close, you're strong. So how?
Well, we think you
from,
are.
from what we've seen from this side of it, what was that within your relationship? Tell us what that was like.
Well, I just go for us. Separation, it just never crossed our minds. We were
Great.
in it together.
Yeah.
It's us and Jesus against the world. That's it.
I like that.
That's
You can have that up in your house.
It's us and Jesus against the world. That's it.
yeah.
But yeah, to survive it, I honestly do not know how people survive grief without faith.
Yeah.
Our faith was our anchor, and it just was like Steve was the person who understood I wasn't sleeping more than 2-hour blocks.
Yeah.
So I'm severely sleep deprived
Yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
towards the end of things, and he's the one who understands that even now I have hypervigilance around breathing at night time. So if there's a
course.
change in breathing, in Josiah's breathing,
Yeah.
I wake. It just is, and he
Mhm.
understands that. And we talk, we check in. We've done a lot of work on communication. We still stuff that up.
Yeah, of course.
As we all
Every
do.
marriage.
Yeah, especially the person closest to you. They
Yeah.
see,
The good,
all
the bad, and the
rough
ugly.
They see it
edges,
all.
the
They see it
all the bits that you try and hide from the rest
Yep.
of the world. Kind of
They
it's
get.
a bit hard to keep in check sometimes at home, so we
course.
rub each other the wrong way.
And I think it's also we gave each other permission to, I suppose, be each other's accountability. Like, just because we've experienced loss does not give you the right to be a jerk.
Okay.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, okay.
Wow. So
Okay.
you kind of held each other to a standard of
Yeah.
we can grieve, but let's not become jerks.
It's such a
Let's not
selfless
become
response.
bitter. Well, so
Well,
many people do. Grief makes them bitter, and
Yep.
And you're going through something that's incredibly hard, and so many people don't get it, and people
Yep.
say dumb things, and it's really easy to default to, woe is me.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
and we tried really, really hard to not let that be us.
Yeah, you didn't want it to affect who you were. in
And
response to people,
and
yeah.
also go, we chose with Hannah's life to celebrate the milestones, to enjoy the moments,
Yeah.
and I feel that it would be dishonoring to her memory to not continue that, to not
Wow.
have that continue. And our celebration and our enjoyment, yes, it changed. We do happy, sad. I mean, we got Hannah's diagnosis on the 1st of April. We still had a party for Steve on the 5th at his favourite coffee shop, because you do the happy and
Yeah.
you do the sad together,
Yeah.
and that's life.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
You don't just lean into one or the other. Like
Yeah.
you can hold both. Joy, grief can both be present in
Yeah.
the same household.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peace and
wow.
grief can collide,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And you said your faith really carried you through. Did you have moments of questioning God or doubting your faith, or did you find that it just drove you kind of deeper into understanding the goodness of God?
I never questioned the what, what was happening. This is what I kind of was, God, can we have a miracle?
Yeah, of course.
There was lots
course.
of that. But no, the goodness of God. My verse has been, since I was 8 years old, I have an anchor verse that I keep coming back to, and it's in Lamentations.
Yeah. Yeah.
My verse is in
The
Lamentations.
lamenting.
It makes sense. But I chose this when I was 8.
Yeah, wow.
Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 21. Everyone's familiar with part of the verses, 21 to 24. And it's, yet this will I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. His mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
Great is his faithfulness.
Yeah.
And for me, the key with Hannah was that first part. Yet this will I call to mind. I choose this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I choose this. And because of that, I have hope.
Beautiful.
That's so beautiful.
And that's
Yeah.
where I sat.
Yeah.
Not always well.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not saying it was easy. There were days I lost my biscuit and it was just a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thinking straight when you're in that, it's such a high pressure moment.
Mm.
But you already had, I think that's the key, is you already had that anchor verse beforehand. Like, so even if you're not thinking straight, it was something that almost already written kind of inside of you that you'd really internalized, so you could call it to mind when you needed it. I think that's really powerful, and an encouragement to us, I suppose, that even if people haven't been through anything, any big loss, like you were saying, some people, their problems seem very small in comparison. But the reality is everyone's going to go through something, maybe hopefully not to the extreme that you have, but we're all going to go through something. And if we have those kind of foundational values and that faith that's really, really solidified inside of us, then it's something we can fall back to in those times.
It's something that just holds you.
Of course.
In the moment.
Of course.
Wow.
So we're learning about, you have 3 children.
I do.
John.
Yes.
Can you tell us about John?
His story, because you're on the other side of loss with Hannah, not on the other side of grief, because I imagine that is a continuing process. And then you have beautiful baby John, who is
so cute. He just completely melted me, like, when I walked out.
And what people might not know is that he has an interesting story too. So could you tell us John's story?
All right, so John is our youngest and our last. We are done. That is it. That's too exciting. We're a little bit complicated because SMA is a genetic condition. So we go into any pregnancy with a 1 in 4 chance of having a child with SMA. They are the odds. That's the statistics behind it. And so we looked at the risk reward and with the reward. You're so intellectual. We just did a little bit of a table. I actually did. I'm sorry. I did a pros cons list. It helps me think.
No judgment here. I'm married to a risk reward kind of thing.
But it is. And look, we always wanted. So we had Josiah, and that was a good process for us. And then we went, look, we'd really like to have just one more. And we're both getting older, so if we're going to do it, it's got to be sort of...
let's get it done. Sure.
Now or never. And so John, and we did amnio at 15 weeks so that we would know. We did it with Josiah as well. And we got a phone call about a week and a half after 10 days, longest 10 days. Waiting for results. And the doctor who rang said, look, I'm really sorry, John has the genetic condition. He's got the gene deletion. And he was quite quite sad to be telling us that, and he did go through the, I have to tell you, you do have options, there is termination, you could try again, you could, take to term and be on the other side of this. We already had a plan. We had talked about the fact that we had these risks, and in the 9 years at that point since Hannah had died, medical science has done some amazing things in the field of genetics, and so we knew that when we fell pregnant with Josiah, there was a treatment option if he had SMA.
Wow. Great.
So there was a treatment option. By the time that John arrived, there were 3. There are 3 treatment options for SMA. So we went and we got a referral back to QCH, to the Children's Hospital. We spoke to the neurologist.
Hi. Back again.
Hello. And it was actually quite a lovely process, because they said, look, we never see the families on the other side.
Oh, wow.
They don't see and so us coming back and going, hi, we're pregnant. We'd like to talk to you about what our options are. We know John has SMA. And that was just a lovely process. So they talked us through the different treatment types, and obviously we had some time, but because we knew so early, we had the opportunity to do some things a little bit differently. So before John was born, I did a blood test that got sent over to the Netherlands to get tested, because we don't do that testing in Australia. They needed to see if I had a particular strain of a virus, because if I had the antibodies, then John would have the antibodies. But if I didn't, they could use that virus to piggyback a synthetic copy of the SMN.
The gene.
Yeah.
So they use the virus to get it into his
Little
his
system.
little body.
Yep.
And then
Whoa.
isn't science
is
amazing
amazing.
that
Yeah.
these options exist, and that
Yeah.
synthetic gene then gets multiplied in all his cells?
Yeah, so the virus means that it's delivered to all of the cells and they recognize it, and obviously they recognize the virus as something to fight. So there is an immune response,
Yeah.
which carries its own risks. But it meant that his body is producing the SMN protein, and John is exactly 1 week shy of 8 months and 22 days today.
Okay. So what does that do to you? Like,
Welcome to
knowing
the
that?
weird things that grief does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's significance in weird things.
That joy of he's doing so well, but
Yeah.
then the grief of this is just bringing back everything that we've been
Yeah.
through with Hannah.
Yeah.
And he is doing so well, isn't
He
he?
is.
That the treatment has worked. He's
He is.
a little
Yeah.
medical miracle every time you go into the hospital.
Yeah.
They all,
Yeah.
you say he's like a celebrity there.
He
they all
is.
just
He
think
is.
he's
He is
the most
he is
amazing
the little
boy.
prince.
A little prince.
He is the
Yeah.
prince.
Yeah.
And look, he's doing. But we have so many unknowns. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what John's ultimate prognosis is,
Okay.
and so he is watched like a hawk.
Yeah, I bet.
And we do try not to helicopter parent,
Yeah.
but
It would be
I think
awfully
I
hard
think
to
people
not.
can understand.
Yeah.
In your case, that there's
Well,
some very
yeah.
real things that you're watching for.
Absolutely.
there are some very real things, and it's this cognitive dissonance. It's this holding two separate ideas that kind of clash with each other.
Yeah.
John has SMA type 1,
Okay.
but he is sitting independently.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It doesn't make
his muscles. The SMA means his muscles should not be working and developing,
The
but
math
he's
don't
sitting.
check out.
It doesn't. Yeah.
No.
He's figuring out
that's
crawling.
Awesome. That's amazing.
yeah.
You know, he's
He's
eating.
eating.
He's eating so much.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really like in my head sometimes there is this, what I know and what I know.
Yeah. Just
Doesn't make sense.
clash.
They do clash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean that's been another, I suppose, big leap of faith, jumping with both feet.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, I was thinking in my head as you were talking before, like after losing Hannah, what was that like deciding, no, we want to have more kids? And I'm sure there was anxiety around that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Just
No,
a little
yeah,
bit.
A little bit. Yeah, okay.
It took us
All right.
5 years.
Yeah.
It took us 5 years
Yeah.
to get to the point where we felt okay with the decision.
Yeah.
And that was just a lot of checking in with each other. Where
Yeah.
are we at?
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
Mm-hmm.
We know we want to.
Yeah.
Are we there yet?
Yeah.
You know,
course.
and so there was a lot of communication about what it would look like, what it might look like.
Yeah.
What if we get a diagnosis of SMA with Josiah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, all
A
those
lot of
conversations,
what
lots of
ifs.
hard.
Lots of pro-con lists.
Yep.
so
Yep.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. What would you say to someone who is walking through some kind of like medical journey with their child right now? You know, some kind of diagnosis. Is there any encouragement, I guess?
You're
that you
doing
would
a
give
good
them?
job.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's when you have a child who has a condition, there's a certain bag of fear that just comes and sits.
Yeah.
And part of that is, you know, you've got the normal parent fears of, am I doing a good job? But am I managing the medical side of things? Am I seeing the symptoms? Am I onto the things? Am I, like, there's just a whole nother cognitive load. There's just a whole lot of other
Yeah.
stuff that goes on in your head. And so anyone who's on that journey right now, you are doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's insane what you're doing, and you're fantastic. You have to be your child's biggest cheerleader, their advocate, and the medical system is not fun to navigate. You know,
No.
if that's your experience, it's big and it's scary. But I would just say you're doing a great job. I needed to hear that with Hannah.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that with Josiah. I needed to hear that with John.
of
Yeah, I guess
course.
all mums need to hear that, hey, but
Yeah.
particularly the
In
ones
this-
that are navigating
Yeah.
this big, scary.
That extra
Yeah.
load, as you said. Yeah.
And I also go, you know, it's okay to not be okay. it's something I've had to learn. It's okay for me to be an emotional mess at times and not be okay, because it's a big load and you have to put it down at some point.
Right. That would be hard because you strike me as a very capable person. And so, how do you find, I guess, motherhood, and particularly motherhood to your children and their unique needs? How do you find that has, I guess, really challenged your capacity and your identity? Do we have enough time for this?
Look, I kind of go, that's a whole nother conversation.
In 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes. Look, it's challenged me in ways that I didn't expect, but I've also, I am supremely, I sit here and I go, I'm supremely blessed. I have Steve. I have Steve in my corner, and Steve is extremely pragmatic.
Okay.
And there are times where he sits and he looks at me and he's like, you need to just stop and go
Have a sleep.
Yeah.
I'm not really good at sleeping during the day, but go be elsewhere.
Yeah.
Go be elsewhere.
Yeah.
I also tell him that sometimes he's not fit for human consumption, so go sleep. That's his thing. His thing is sleeping.
Such a good thing to say. I'll remember that. Yeah.
But and it's that thing of being accountable with each other, and to have somebody external. And I mean, my sister does this occasionally for me. Like John, we went to the ED on Friday night. He had a fever. He had pinprick rash. I was like, meningococcal. So ED. And Steve, bless that man, he stayed at home with Josiah because I needed to go with John.
Yeah.
But I also had my sister, come and just message and say, look, there's been offers of help. Family have offered help. Make sure you take us up on that.
Yeah.
We're not offering because
it's the reflex. It's just what you say.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
And so, I am supremely blessed. I have very close family who are very involved, who are very supportive. And I have people who are willing to say to me, you have help, take it. Because I struggle to ask. I really do. It's the hardest thing to do when you're a mum, is to go, I'm not all over this like I feel I should be, so somebody else, can you step into my mess and walk with me for a bit. And I really don't do it well, so having people external to me say, hi,
we love you,
We're
let us
here.
help.
a little bit of a verbal slap.
With love.
With a lot of love, but I
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah,
I need that.
Amazing.
And again, I'm still working with a counsellor because John, diagnosis, big things, and I go, I've been very blessed in that Steve has released, I suppose, our family finance, and to be able to do that, to invest in my mental health, to make sure that we're okay. I mean, he does other things. He goes and shoots gel blasters and races
Makes
RC
knives, doesn't he?
cars, and loves his knives and his torches, and
He's always talking to my hobby about
boy
making
stuff.
knives.
Comes down to church and crawls around under the stage and runs leads.
Fixes
and
our projector when it cucks it. Bless that man. He is
so
a
I
good
go,
man.
But it's that I suppose two-way. He releases me, I release him. It's just for different things because we have different needs.
Awesome.
And I think that's part of that. What makes us us.
Yeah, sounds like marriage and community have been a huge factor, I guess, in your journey and being mum, and that's awesome.
It's really great. That blew my mind. Like, I know you and I know your face, and Joe told me just that this happened, and I thank you so much for telling us your story. I know.
Thank you for having me.
It'll bless so
being
many.
vulnerable.
We had the box of tissues here,
Just
ready to
We
go.
all made it through.
We all
though.
made it through, but we knew that this was going to be a tough one. So thank you so much for sharing your heart and sharing Hannah's story and your story.
And can I just one thing I'd really like to advocate for, if I can.
Of course.
If somebody tells you that they've lost their child, our default is to say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And that's not a bad response.
Okay. Yeah.
But can I really encourage you, if you have the capacity and are able to sit with that for a moment before you do the knee-jerk, I'm sorry for your loss, say, I'm sorry would you like to tell me about your child? Because we're parents.
Yeah.
You wanna
I
talk about
parent.
them.
I parent Hannah's memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all that's left for me to do.
Yeah.
That's all I have the opportunity to do. So if you really want to love on somebody who has lost a child, if they've told you their child's name, use it.
Yeah.
If they've told you they've experienced loss, ask them.
Yeah.
They may not be in a place to share.
Yeah. But offer it up.
They might give you the card.
They might give you
they
the
might
card,
give
but
that
but you have no idea. You have no idea the world that opens up for families who have walked this or are walking this.
Yeah. To talk about them, not brush over their memory, but
Yeah, because
talk about them.
I'm so sorry for your loss is like can we just
the
shut the lid?
shutdown.
Can we just
Let's
can we
not
just
shut it down?
back away slowly because this
Yeah.
is scary.
Yeah.
And it is scary, but if you can be okay with the scary for a moment,
Yeah. That's
we
true.
like talking about our kids.
Yeah.
That's very good advice for those of us that need to know what do you do. in that.
What do you
What
do?
do you do? What do you say?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I love
really
that.
helpful.
And if
Thank
you can't say that, say, I've got no idea what to say, because we appreciate honesty.
Yeah. Over communicate the honesty and be honest and open. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Kaz. And
Kaz.
I just loved that picture of joy and grief being able to actually live
Coexist.
side by side. And I think that's really what you've brought us today. We can hear all the joy in your voice when you talk about your kids, but also the grief and how we can respond the same way.
Yeah.
Joy, celebrate things, but also grieve with people who grieve. So really appreciate
Thank
you
you,
sharing your
Kaz.
story. Thank you
for having me.
Thank you. Well, that's all for this episode of the Strong Families podcast.
We are so glad you joined us for this chat. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us on Instagram at strongfamilies.au or on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. Now, go enjoy your week, enjoy your family, and we'll join us again next week.
Cool. See you next time, guys.